And thank you so much for waiting through that break. I'm still Regina. This is still Rosemary. And we totally appreciate you guys for hanging on through that. I know there was a lot of fun talk in chat about, like, everyone's most feared Pokemon in Series 8. So, yeah, that's a fun one to think about. I mean, it's only been a week since it's come out, but Rosemary, do you have one that I think that you would consider the one that you fear the most?
I don't like playing Kyogre mirrors, so I might have to say Kyogre also, because I've been using Kyogre a lot on the Battle Stadium ladder. Kyogre mirrors are terrifying. I don't like it. It makes me Dynamax Regieleki far more often than I think I'd like to admit with the team. But I was seeing some Kyogre from some other people in the chat as well, but I feel like we have a good answer to that, Regina.
It's called, I was going to say Tapu Rillaboom, but it's Rillaboom and Kartana. Like, you just put Grassy Glad and you're okay, right? Like, that's your end game there. But I can understand why people are afraid of Kyogre. I think it's funny that that's the answer now, when before it probably would have been Xerneas for a lot of people.
Yeah, Xerneas definitely scary. I think that's a tough one.
What would mine be, actually? I don't think I've played enough for them. Oh, no. You know what? Any of the horses, like Ice Rider or Ghost Rider, I know they haven't really been used. Or, sorry, Shadow Rider. They just kind of scare me in the sense that I'm not used to seeing them, and I don't really know what they're going to do. And I loved using Spectrier, so I already know that they hit hard, but I'm really glad that I haven't run into a lot of them in ladder, because I'm like, what do I do against this team every time I see one?
Me, every time I just actually look at team preview. What do I do? I just add myself.
I just do this. Oh, I'm the exact same way. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is so much easier when we're sitting back here like this than it is when you're behind a controller and you're like, what do we do now? Like, do I just click it? It's thinking about playing on Battle Stadium is also just, now I'm just like getting nervous again.
But we're not the ones playing, so that's good, right? We don't have to be the ones worried about team preview or any of this stuff, but we do have some incredible players that do need to start thinking about team preview, because we're about to get into our next top 4 match. I'm super, super excited about this. We're already at the top 4 of the women's tournament, and it is so exciting to be here.
You guys will definitely recognize them. One of them we just had on stream last round. It will be Yoko with that Lapras, the Duskman, Necrozma, and the Ferrothorn, which was honestly able to kind of steamroll that Togekiss, especially, carrying that team on its back. And then from earlier today, you've got Mogar, who also has, I want to say, a Lapras, but more importantly, they're carrying that Zacian, which was one of those Pokemon that I was expecting to see a lot more, especially in Top Cut. The ability in Intrepid Sword giving you that +1 on every single switch in. And I will say this, and you guys can at me all you want. I think Behemoth Blade is one of the best animations ever. And like, it's so cool looking. It's one of those, like, you walk away from an explosion and it's great.
All of the restricted signature move animations that were redone for Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield are just so clean. I could stare at them all day.
They definitely did get a glow up, and I love seeing the reanimations for them. But both of these players would be playing for a spot finals, and then the winner of finals and those in Top Cut will actually be getting some prizes from our sponsored Top Cut events. They were gracious enough to give us some playmats and some plushies, and if I had known there were plushies on the line, I definitely would have entered. I am one of those people who every time a new plushie is released, I sit there and hover over the add it to your cart button, and I can tell from your background that you are very much the same way. Just a little bit.
maybe just we're not going to talk about my addiction, okay? That's not this type of show.
Not an addiction. It's not an addiction. It's making sure that all of those plushies have a safe home.
Yes, they do. They do have a very, very good home here at my house. But yes, thank you so much to Top Cut Events for sponsoring this stream, sponsoring our actual Top Cut, and also making sure that the players are getting some kind of reward for their hard work for this tournament.
But now going back to the Mogar Yoko matchup. So they both got gigantic. So they both have Gigantamax Lapras. One has Duskmane, the other one has Zacian. So we've got 2 different kinds of Steel type Pokemon. And so one's a Fairy and one is Psychic. So I think it's really going to be interesting, especially Mogar's answer to what a Ferrothorn would be. Incineroar is generally a lot of people's favorite answer to that. And then you've also got Pokemon that have like really good fighting type moves as well. So I think maybe now the question is, how do you deal with that Togekiss?
Yeah, that Togekiss is definitely going to be something that you have to be super, super careful about, because we already saw how much work it can put in terms of those yawns going off onto the enemy team. And, I think that forces you into a really awkward position of having to rotate through your Pokemon, maybe in a way that you don't want to, because you're trying to set up for your own success. And I think that's something that can hurt a lot of different players when having to play against that. However, when you do take a look at both of these teams and you do take a look at the fact that you have a Togekiss on that side of the field, well, guess what? Mogar's got a Raichu. So Raichu is definitely a great way to help pivot through some of those Pokemon. You can use Volt Switch for quite a bit of damage. You can also use Fake Out if you're worried about that. You also have the ability to kind of hit it for super effective damage if you want to go for that Lapras, when you want to go for the G-Max Resonance as well. So I think that's something that, Mogar can look at and go, hey, that might be an answer to this problem, if they're looking at it as a problem.
Yeah, and actually, it's really nice that you point out that Raichu, because we saw that Raichu have the Nuzzle move as opposed to something like Electrolab, right? And Nuzzle is one of those really fun moves because it's not known for its dealing damage. It's known for the fact that it paralyzes you, and if you're able to stop sort of like maybe Togekiss from being able to set up Yawn because you paralyze, honestly, that could be something that's like huge in your favor, right? Like it might as well just be a battle of sort of status afflictions between this Togekiss and this Raichu, especially because that Togekiss is pretty slow based off of what we saw from Yoko.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Raichu is a usually very fast Pokemon, so you're kind of expect it to be able to, cycle through a little bit faster, especially if you wanted to maybe get your Intimidate users in there, or, something like Incineroar, which we've seen from a lot of the Incineroar during this particular tournament. They are running Parting Shot, so that might be a factor if you are looking at the Incineroar that Mogar is using. So I think that's something to also be cognizant of in terms of rotating through Pokemon, or actually having a utility and a way to be able to rotate through very cleanly.
Man, Incineroar is one of those Pokemon that suffers from like 5 move syndrome, and it's just so rough.
Yeah, you want it all.
Yeah, as soon as you see Parting Shot, though, you're like, okay, it's not Assault Vest. We can like figure out what else it might be. I mean, honestly, I think like when you're running like a Pokemon like Incineroar, who after it finally got Intimidate, just climbed to the top of usage and stayed there and hasn't really moved. And it's one of those Pokemon that it's terrorizing a new generation of players in Sword and Shield, because I'll hear people complain about Incineroar, and I go, oh yeah, it's always been a problem, and like it was more so after Intimidate got introduced for it. And one of these days, you're just going to see Incineroar be classified like as a legendary Pokemon just because of how often people use it and what a pain it is to have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely sympathize with that. I love seeing all of the Raichus in chat, though. Looks like we've got a couple of Mogar fans. Super excited to see that happening here. But I'm also really excited to see how Yoko decides to play out this match. Both of these players are incredibly accomplished when it comes down to how well they have played in the video game championship circuit previously. So this is going to be an absolutely exciting, explosive banger of a match. I'm really looking forward to it.
And both the Lapras are going to hit the field here. Yoko leading with Incineroar, and Lapras as Mogar leading with their own Lapras, and Raichu actually. So a little bit of fake out pressure from both sides, but more importantly, you've got now that G-Max Resonance possibility coming out from both players.
All right, well, taking a look at what's going to happen here, especially when you're looking at the Lapras on both sides of the field, you might not necessarily want to keep your Incineroar in there. So I respect this coming out from Yoko, maybe just saying, hey, I can use this opportunity to try to get Ferrothorn set up very, very quickly here.
And Mogar actually going to take this opportunity to say, hey, you know what? If Lapras is on the field, we're going to do what Lapras is known for, and we're going to go for that Gigantamax. Going to try to set up that G-Max Resonance. I will say right now, I love the color of this Lapras. I think it is one of the best shinies out there. I think the regular Lapras also looks really pretty, but this is one of those Pokemon that has aged absolutely well. But Yoko returning with her own Gigantamax. So based off of how like the order of these Pokemon Gigantamax, we can see that Mogar is probably going to be faster unless they somehow are tying for speed. But Yoko running a Trick Room team might not necessarily want that for the most part. But both Gigantamaxes coming out on this turn.
Yeah, going for the Gigantamax here just kind of says to me that, oh, wait, what's this? Raichu's going to go ahead and use Helping Hand, and for the Max Geyser, that's going to do a lot of damage. But the fact that Mogar's Lapras goes first sets up the rain for Yoko's Lapras if they went for Max Geyser too.
Oh my gosh, that Ferrothorn took a lot of damage from that Max Geyser. Like, that Helping Hand is just so nice. But G-Max Resonance going to be the move of choice from Yoko. Just targeting down that Raichu and doesn't quite get it down to that 1 HP range to maybe show if it was Focus Sash or not. However, now that Raichu is in a little bit more of a precarious spot, at least you're able to set up your screens and take care of a little bit of a bigger threat on Malcolm's side.
Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to figure out what this Raichu could potentially do here. I think that the best position that it's in is maybe to try to go for a little bit of damage here. I do like the selection of the Volt Switch, especially because this is a good read now, recognizing that the Ferrothorn might protect in this instance.
And that's exactly what that Ferrothorn did, as Raichu goes for the Volt Switch into Yoko's Lapras, gets some damage down into it, but more importantly allows them to sort of pivot around to a different Pokemon, and is actually going to be bringing out the restricted, which is going to be that Zacian. Again, that +1 thanks to Intrepid Sword makes Zacian such a scary Pokemon to have to face down, especially if you're not able to intimidate it down as often as you might like. But on the second turn now, we're going to have Mogar's Lapras. It's finally set up that screen, so going to have a little bit of extra turns. Gets a critical hit onto into that Ferrothorn spot, but again, thanks to that Protect, is able to mitigate a little bit of the damage it would have otherwise taken. And now Max Geyser from Yoko's Lapras is going to be boosted by the rain set up by Mogar's own. It's going to do a lot of damage onto that Zacian on that switch in, almost half of its own HP.
Yeah, that was a lot of damage that we are going to see that Zacian take. But this is kind of where Zacian thrives, is that it wants to be in front of a Gigantamax or a Dynamax Pokemon, especially when it does have access to that Behemoth Blade. It's going to be doing quite a bit more damage, especially if it is going to be onto a Dynamax target. But this just doesn't feel like the right time to have to go for something like that, especially if, Yoko does have access to that Intimidate to be able to drop that attack stat back down to neutral and maybe even go for a Max Guard. But I like the Sword Stance here.
Yeah, that Intimidate does not matter to Mogar's Zacian. It is going to go for that Sword Stance, so it's going to be at +1 still, as Max Geyser now from Malcolm's Lapras, continually being the fast one, is able to catch that Incineroar on that switch in, does a massive amount of damage, however, not enough to knock it out, thanks to that screens that Yoko's own Lapras had set up in previous turns, and now Incineroar is able to at least chomp down on that berry, get back a lot of that HP, and now Yoko returning fire with her own Max Geyser into that Zacian. We saw it do almost half now, but not enough to pick up in the rain. So again, screens really playing an important role here, and kind of showing why Lapras and Zacian together are really kind of fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so colloquially, a lot of people have been calling this lapdog, whether or not you agree with calling it that. Obviously, there's I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to call it, but I think that the power in this particular duo comes from the fact that Lapras can set up the screens, and then Zacian's able to sit safely behind those screens and set up for dealing out some really big damage. I think that Malcolm is still in this position where they really want to try to play it safe here, so I appreciate the double protect from both sides just to mitigate some of that damage. But ooh.
Yeah, so Yoko switching out that Incineroar for her Ferrothorn, and as both of Mogar's Pokemon hide behind that Protect, Yoko taking this opportunity to click Perish Song, a move that honestly I've been really surprised to see lately, just because it's usually paired up with a Pokemon that has Shadow Attack, but really good at trying to use for endgame. So surprising to see it here, I think, because of the fact that we have 4 Pokemon on each side still.
Well, I kind of think that in this position, you don't necessarily want to switch out unless you really, really have to. I think that, that Zacian is kind of on its last legs to stand on, especially when it is sitting at that 12 HP. So you have to be careful about how you decide to use some of that damage. You do have the ability to switch out most of your Pokemon, so you can get rid of the Perish Song effect. But I think that Zacian here should just kind of go for some damage and see what it can get done.
is going to switch out on this turn. Incineroar being revealed as well on Mogar's side is going to get intimidated down into Pokemon that don't really care much about that, especially that Lapras. But like you had said, right, like that Perish Song is going to allow you to at least have to like try to pivot around. And I just realized that Mogar's Pokemon have been taking pretty heavy damage here, and Incineroar as well now on Yoko's side are going to come out in place of that Ferrothorn. So both Lapras and Ferrothorn don't have to worry about Perish Song anymore. Lapras going for the Protect on Yoko's side is going to stay in for one more turn here. As Zacian goes for that Sacred Sword, unfortunately does not get the Incineroar and goes into that protected Lapras spot instead.
Yeah, a little bit of a, unfortunate protect there from Mogar, but a great protect there coming out from Yoko to be able to read that play correctly. And now that they've repositioned to get the Incineroar in, it might be, depending on how these trained, be a little bit of a speed tie to see who can fake out who.
This Zacian is literally, like you said, on its last legs, and I think it's at plus. It's actually at neutral now because it had the Intrepid Sword, was intimidated. Swords Dance and is now intimidated again. So it's at neutral, so it doesn't have like that boost that it usually gets. This Lapras from Yoko is going to be withdrawn, and the last Pokemon being revealed to be Necrozma, a really healthy Necrozma here, as Fake Out from Mogar's Incineroar is going to be faster than Yoko's own Incineroar, but that Sacred Sword going into Necrozma, it honestly just does some almost no damage at all as its Perish count falls to 1, and this is the point where I think you're okay with just letting that Zacian go down because it's not going to be able to do much anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of the unfortunate kind of way that Zacian gets played right now, is that you really do want to position it so that it is in front of a Dynamax or Gigantamax Pokemon, but also it can do a lot of work on its own. When it did have access to that Sword Stance to be able to boost up its attack, you can see it just able to take out that Incineroar there very quickly.
Yeah, so Zacian being able to go first. And actually, now Mogar's Incineroar going for the parting shot drops Yoko's Necrozma down by 1 attack stage. And because of the fact that it's Prison Armor, because it's a Duskmane Necrozma, it means that it doesn't have to worry about not connecting with that, as Lapras is going to be switched back in. Lapras still at full health, but both the Incineroar and the Raichu that are in the back for Mogar are kind of both not looking super healthy, as Yoko takes this opportunity to set up that Trick Room. Zacian loses the last remaining 12 HP it had as that Perish Song drops to 0.
I can't with chat right now. Spam these potatoes to help support the commentators. I'm a what now? I'm sorry, I can't. I don't even know what's going on in the game right now. I just got really distracted.
No, it's okay. No, don't even worry. So what's happening right now is Incineroar and Lapras and a Duskmane Necrozma and another Lapras. So Incineroar is at full health, has that Fake Out pressure. I think now Necrozma's at -2. And so let's see. Yoko's lost her Incineroar and Mogar's lost his Zacian. And as of right now, I think now's the time to be worrying a little bit about that Perish Song endgame as well. And the Laprases, now that we have Trick Room up, Yoko I think has a little bit more of that advantage.
Yeah, getting back to the game, chat, you guys are lovely. Thank you so much for everything that you do. We are going to see that Hydro Pump come through, landing onto the Incineroar, but I think this is kind of an interesting position for Malcolm to be in, because you're absolutely right about needing to deal with the Perish Song now. You're not going to have as many opportunities to get those switches in as you might want to have, so that might be something to really pay attention to for these next couple of turns.
Oh man, Mogar's Incineroar is actually a Citrus Berry, and so was able to get back that HP right away. That Necrozma going for the Sword Stance though to bring it back up to neutral. Oh no, it gets burned from the Flare Blitz.
Oh no!
Weakness policy, did that burn? Okay, that burn chance for Flare Blitz, I think it's a 10% chance to get burned from that. That is one of the most stressful things to see every time you get hit by Flare Blitz. The first thing I think of is, please don't burn, please don't burn. And
God. No!
Yoko was in such a good spot too. That burn just hurts so badly because you activate the weakness policy and you get rid of the Intimidate and the parting shot, attack knockdown, but that burn just takes like all the offensive like pressure that Necrozma has, and just it's just not there anymore.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that really hurts. The burn was so good for Mogar here. Like, look at how little this Earthquake's gonna do. I'm just gonna let this play out itself.
Man, instead of treating like a champ.
Yeah. It absolutely did. It absolutely did.
Okay, so both Lapras have hit their hydro pumps, but now like Necrozma goes down. It could have done so much damage to both Lapras and Incineroar because it had that plus from the weakness policy. But that burn, I think, just really kind of bailed Mogar out in that moment. Just you would have had like a double knockout otherwise from Yoko's Necrozma.
Well, now in this position, you've got the Ferrothorn in for virtually free here. Yoko can really set up for success going for maybe an Iron Defense here to really deal with the Incineroar's ability to Flare Blitz it, or you can just start getting out those Leech Seeds. So this is a really good position for Yoko to be in the end game. I think that Mogar needs to really try to find a knockout here, particularly before this Lapras is going to be able to use that Perish Song.
Yeah, I think if you're Mogar, you're totally okay, like, going for that Perish Song strategy now, because, like, yeah, if Ferrothorn is supposed to set up and go for the Leech Seeds, but you still have that Pokemon advantage, you're able to switch out continuously and at least try to make it so even if you do take some damage, like, yeah, Raichu might go down on this turn, but if Incineroar avoids that, then, oh, no, he timed out. Oh my gosh, so he actually timed out. So he's unable to switch out as Ferrothorn is able to go for the body press into Incineroar and knock it out. And Freeze Drive from Yoko's Lapras, because we're still in Trick Room, so now Yoko's going to be faster, is able to do super effective damage into Mogar's own Lapras. Returning Fire with its own Freeze Drive doesn't do that much into that Ferrothorn. But I think I want to say he timed out because it looked like he was trying to switch out for that Raichu.
Yeah, that was absolutely a timeout there. Definitely wanted to get that Raichu in instead and hopefully be able to reset. But unfortunately, they're going to lose that Pokemon, and that's really not what you want to see in the late game here. Really unfortunate timeout there.
And, you know, so Raichu's not as good to deal with both these Pokemon as it could be, especially because that Ferrothorn is still there. Iron Barbs and the Fake Out, I mean, Raichu's still able to hold on after all of that, so Ferrothorn is flinching on this turn as Lapras, again, because we are in Trick Room from Yoko's side, is going to be faster and is able to pick up the knockout now on Mogar's Raichu and is able to make sure that this is the only Lapras left. I'm not quite sure how many times the Trick Room are left, but another Freeze Drive from Mogar's own Lapras isn't enough to pick up that knockout. That leftovers recovery is absolutely vital to this Ferrothorn, as Trick Room finally expires, but I think a little bit too late now here for Mogar.
Yeah, unfortunately, it might be a little too late. Perish Song is just going to be able to win, but I think you can also just secure the knockout here, and Ferrothorn is very, very free to continue to cycle through these Protects and just, yeah, keep chipping away at the damage that Malcolm really, really wants to get done here, but Perish Song here to just steal up this game.
Perish Song from that Lapras, like you said, so it's kind of crazy because you had the burn from the Flare Blitz into the Necrozma, and then you've kind of got like that weird sort of like RNG that almost made it seem like Yoko might have lost that, but that timeout from Mogar, I think, hurt them in the end here, and kind of just unable to really do anything else now that Perish Song has been activated. And the fact that Mogar was letting Yoko, I don't want to say like letting, but the fact that Trick Room was able to be set up from Yoko's side against Mogar, being able to try to navigate that is really tough sometimes.
Yeah, I think that the Trick Room ended up playing a very influential part in the late game, especially because there wasn't really a great way that Malcolm was able to navigate around the Trick Room. But I feel like Malcolm still played to their outs very, very, very well when it comes down to just, you know, how to navigate that situation. And then that unfortunate timeout there, I think the game might have been just a little bit different had that switch come through, and maybe we would have seen a little bit of a different end game there, but the Perish Song there just able to seal up that game number one. And now Malcolm really needs to kind of consider how they're going to deal with going through with this for the next game. Do they let the Trick Room get set up again, or do they find a way to maneuver around that and just make sure that that Trick Room does not get a chance to get set up? I think that's something that Yoko played super, super well for.
too was that Zacian took so much damage from the two max guys. It was like, yeah, it was able to survive with that 12 HP, but once you put that much offensive pressure onto it, it's not going to be able to do much, especially now that you have like the two Intimidators, right? You see both the Incineroars from both Malcolm and from Yoko, and you've got sort of this, how do you make it so that your Pokemon has that offensive pressure against your opponent, but doesn't take that much damage, especially from the Dynamax turns. And I think the speed tiers, now that you're kind of aware of them, especially because consistently, right, you had Malcolm's Lapras be faster outside of Trick Room and then Yoko's be faster inside Trick Room. Like, how do you make it so that, one, like you said, you stop Trick Room, and then two, how do you make it so that way your Zacian isn't like, I don't know how to put it into words. It's just like is able to do damage after the intimidates.
Yeah, you really want Zacian to do its job. Is essentially, I think, what you're trying to get at there is like Zacian really wasn't around to dish out the damage that we are expecting to see, especially out of a restricted Pokemon, and especially if you're going to kind of put your eggs in the Zacian basket, you really are hoping that the Zacian's going to be able to secure a huge knockout, especially when it is in the face of a Dynamax or a Gigantamax Pokemon. So unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. But we are getting into our game number 2 in a very similar board state to what we saw in game number 1, with just a couple of switches here.
Yeah, so both of them still leading Lapras, but the Incineroar is on Mogar's side of the field now instead of Yoko, and Yoko's stepping out that Incineroar from game 1 for the Ferrothorn lead instead. Both very slow Pokemon on Yoko's side of the field. We know, again, that the Lapras from Mogar is faster than Yoko's, and neither one of those Pokemon on her side are able to set up Trick Rooms, so I think a really interesting choice.
So Lapras versus Lapras again. We saw both of these players go for the Gigantamax very early on, and we did see that Mogar's was faster. So recognizing that, maybe Mogar can get a chance to get something done very early on in this game, maybe chunk away at that Ferrothorn just a little bit more, or just go ahead and start chunking away at that Lapras. You know, it's definitely one way that you can handle things, but I think that the way that Yoko responds to this is going to be very telling of how they really want to play this game and how they're going to go for the rest of this series.
And so a repeat from game 1, both of them going for that Gigantamax. We know that Malcolm had chosen to go for the Max Geyser first and had set up the rain actually to the detriment of their own Zacian, because Yoko had been able to sort of take advantage of that in the second turn of Dynamax. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see if they both just decide to set up that G-Max Resonance now, but we are going to see the Ferrothorn going for the Protect, so it doesn't want to get faked out by the Incineroar possibly, and Incineroar going to have to be worried about maybe getting hit by a Geyser, but nope, just kidding. It uses Parting Shot instead into Yoko's Lapras. They're going to mitigate the damage that it would have as its special attack drops here, and is able to, oh, that is a change. That is a Rillaboom that I am seeing, and I'm hoping that like they click into. It is one of those Pokemon that has just absolutely been fantastic in just like Sword and Shield in general, and is able to bring in that grassy terrain as well for a little bit of HP recovery, which, let's be honest, Ferrothorn does not need more HP recovery, but more importantly is able to at least hit that Lapras. This Lapras from Mogar, once again, going for the Max Geyser, is setting up the rain, interestingly enough, goes into that Ferrothorn, you saw the HP bar move, but honestly, it's kind of hard to tell sometimes that Protect really helping it on this turn.
Yeah, setting up the rain here, but as we saw from game number 1, similarly to that, Yoko is going to go for the G-Max Resonance and reads into that switch beautifully, whether it was intended or not. Looks really good. So congrats to Yoko for getting out that huge amount of damage onto that Rillaboom and also setting up that Aurora Veil.
Because the Parting Shot at least makes it so that Rillaboom, who would normally take a lot of damage from like that Ice type move, is even like not behind screens, was able to stay above that that green bar, and more importantly has that Grassy Glide ability for it, and is able to go for that priority attack.
Yeah, Rillaboom is definitely a very strong Pokemon to have on the field. We were talking about it being able to be a really good Pokemon for dealing with something like a Kyogre, but look at that critical hit damage coming out from the U-turn, and a great way to cycle through and maybe get that Incineroar back on the field, or if you want, get that Zacian out there so it can start setting up and getting out some big damage.
So Rillaboom was like, hey, I'm here to show everybody that I showed up for this match, but I'm going to get out and bring back in Incineroar, so get another Intimidate into both of these Pokemon. More importantly, we had seen it use Parting Shot into that Lapras and did not take that first turn to go for the Fake Out, but Max Geyser from Mogar, after having set up the previous turn, is going to go into that Incineroar. Does a little bit more damage this time. Still has not set up screens, though, for their side, as G-Max Resonance one more time from Yoko's Lapras is going to go into what was that Rillaboom, and is instead now that Incineroar, and Incineroar takes it like a champ, but Ferrothorn, taking this opportunity to go for the Leaf Seed, connects with Malcolm's Lapras, and now Ferrothorn, besides the leftovers and besides the Leaf Seed, also has Grassy Terrain as a source of HP recovery.
That's going to make this Ferrothorn very, very, very sticky and very difficult to remove from the field. So, when you're taking a look at that, I think, Mogar needs to do a little bit more damage. Maybe, try to set up the screens here now that is going to be their final turn of that Gigantamax. And I really like how Malcolm is cycling through their Pokemon super beautifully. I think that's really mitigating the amount of damage that Yoko is able to do as well.
Yeah, and this is, I think, the important part where you start paying attention to speed tiers and why that's so important in the first couple of games, because now, Morgar is able to, safely go for that Parting Shot into Yoko's Lapras. It's going to be at -2 special attack, so going to really be okay taking a G-Max Resonance here from Yoko's own Lapras if it goes into that Rillaboom spot, and Malcolm finally ending the turn, like you said, with their own G-Max Resonance, is going to be able to set up screens that is actually going to last longer than Yoko's because it took that extra 2 turns to go for the Max Geysers instead, and now Yoko going to return fire with a Max Geyser, so was able to get that first turn correctly, but now Rillaboom is like, I'm okay with taking this water, and is at a nice amount of HP still, as Iron Defense from Ferrothorn is going to be the last move on this turn of Dynamax for both trainers, and Rillaboom comes back in and is able to get back that HP as well.
I think you have to also keep in mind for Yoko's Lapras, it's going to be dealing out so much less damage even in the rain with those Max Geysers because of the fact that we did see 2 Parting Shots come through from that Incineroar. So Yoko might want to consider repositioning around that Lapras, or maybe doesn't care about the stats if the end game is about using that Perish Song once again. But now that the Dynamax and the Gigantamax are over, you can consider working through that particular question as the match continues to go.
Yeah, I think the adjustment for having that Incineroar and that Rillaboom just kind of switching in and out for each other and making sure that Lapras's sort of damage isn't as powerful as it could have been was really smart, right? Because Lapras has 2 attacks that can be super effective against both of those Pokemon. And I think that adjustment from Mogar has just been really nicely done. And actually, Zacian is coming onto the field in place of that Lapras, gets that +1 from Intrepid Sword. And, I'm not surprised I have to say that so many times lately.
+1 from Intrepid Sword. You're going to have to say it quite a few more times, I think, because Zacian is definitely here to stay within the meta. But Necrozma now coming in is going to take the U-turn, but great pivots coming through from Mogar right now to be able to get Incineroar back into the fray, too.
Yeah, and now that Incineroar is back, is going to be able to get that Intimidate down onto that Necrozma. Again, a physical attacker that you kind of have to be worried about. We know that it sets up Trick Room, and that might be Yoko's best play here because of the fact that you need to make sure that you can deal some damage and that don't have to worry about those speeds. But that Body Press, thanks to the Iron Defense from earlier, does a massive amount of damage to Incineroar. This is why screens are so important, because that Incineroar would have been a dead cat on that switch in. Instead, is able to get a little bit of HP back from that Citrus Berry that is chomping down on, and also thanks to its friend Rillaboom in the back is able to get some more HP from that Grassy Terrain.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was such big damage from Ferrothorn, and it makes it so scary to play against because of the fact that you have the +2 Iron Defense, you have the ability to set up those Leech Seeds, plus you also have the Body Press, which Incineroar did not like taking on the switch-in. And now here you're kind of in a position where, maybe you got to stop the Trick Room. So I think that's something that Mogar did a great job of, which is just getting that Incineroar in, have that fake out pressure, and see whether or not the Zacian will be able to take it out with this Swords Dance boost.
Oh man, yeah. So Necrozma not going to be able to move at all here, and Ferrothorn, surprisingly enough, not going for protections, instead just going to go for that damage into the Incineroar, is going to take it out. That critical hit not going to matter at all, again, thanks to the fact that it's at +2 from that defense from Iron Defense. The interesting thing for me is you know that Zacian are probably going to be running a fighting type move, and now you have this Barathum just sitting there and you're staring at it, and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to go for Incineroar instead and just let the Zacian set up.
Zacian setting up here is really scary, especially because the Zacian is in a much, much better position than it was in game number 1, where it still has full health, it still has a lot of supportive partners to be able to use next to it, just like that Rillaboom. Now that grassy terrain has gone, Rillaboom can just come back in and set it again using Grassy Surge.
Yeah, I really like that, because now you're preserving that Rillaboom for sort of like that end game as well against the Lapras there. That Zacian just totally clicked into Swords Dance again.
That's so greedy.
It might
but it's such a good call.
Yeah, because Yoko is switching out that Necrozma for that Incineroar, and so now that Zacian is going to be, actually I can't even tell you what attack set it's at right now, because there's like a lot of switching and then Intrepid Sword, but Fake Out is not going to do anything into this Incineroar spot because it did just switch in right now. You know, Yoko unable to really set up that Trick Room and might have to save it for later, but Body Press from Ferrothorn is going to be able to, oh no, I lied, that is not picking up the knockout, that is 2 HP that's Rillaboom held on to. I am so sorry I have ever doubted you, Rillaboom, because that was kind of clutch. And being able to stay on and then have access to like that grassy line. And wait, is he? Please, I was like, please don't click Swords Dance again, because that was like, I saw that like lock in, and that was really stressful.
Oh my gosh, Zacian's sitting at such an intense attack stat though. You had the 2 Swords Dances that put it at +4, plus you had the Intrepid Sword to put it at +5, and then you had 1 Intimidate, so it should be at +4 right now, which is really scary. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And Rillaboom is going to be switched out for the Lapras, and Sonora is like, hey, you know what, we're not going to have to attack this turn because that's kind of scary, so fakes out that Zacian, and Body Press from Ferrothorn is going to go into that Lapras spot. Does a lot of damage, but Lapras is able to hold on with that 48 HP. We are still behind the Aurora Veil screens, and now Zacian is able to recover a little bit of HP, or actually, it hasn't, so that fake out damage was basically non-existent, and it only stopped it from 1 turn, and it's fat. Yeah, it's a +4. Thank you for that, Mogar, that we got to see that and confirm it.
It looks really good. You know, here you can definitely go ahead and click some Sacred Swords and just go ahead and try to get that damage down onto both of these Pokemon for super effective damage. But it's going to be enough now. Absolutely.
Man, it is so rare to see an Incineroar be taken out in 1 shot from a super effective move, but that Zacian Sacred Sword was able to do so, as now Lapras's Freeze Dry is able to go into that Ferrothorn. And Ferrothorn, is going to return with a Body Press and pick up the knockout on Lapras, but you know, you've got that grassy, you've got the Rillaboom in the back now, you've got the Zacian at +4, so you're down to the last 2 Pokemon, but I don't think you're quite down and out yet, especially because you set up the Zacian so well.
Oh, the Zacian is so scary here, and then you still have the Rillaboom, so you're still getting a little bit of fake out pressure for the remaining Pokemon on Yoko's side of the field, and if we see Mogar get these next couple of turns correctly, this is going to be a very good position for them to be in. I think you're very safe here to try to go for a knockout. I think Protect here would be pretty devastating if you do get the Trick Room up. But yeah, there's the Protect coming in from the Ferrothorn.
Yoko, her screens actually ran out, and so like you said, Ferrothorn protects here, but Rillaboom was able to stop Necrozma from going for a Trick Room setup, as it is going to be flinched here, and Zacian going for that Sacred Sword, not going to do any damage, but at least Rillaboom was able to get a little bit of health. I think there might be 1 or 2 more turns left of grassy terrain, so at least Rillaboom was able to take advantage of that priority move. But again, we know that Yoko's team is a little bit slower than most teams we're used to seeing.
Yeah, so Yoko's definitely going to be able to take advantage of the Trick Room whenever it does get set up. But we did see the fake out from the Rillaboom. And now, hopefully, Zacian's just going to be able to take out this Necrozma before that Trick Room can get set up. If I was paying attention correctly.
no, yeah, I got picked up. But I think if you double down into the Necrozma, you might be able to stop it from setting up Trick Room, because all that's left in the back for Yoko is that Lapras, and Zacian is in such like a powerful spot, right? A double protect from Ferrothorn is unable to be is unable to go off, but Rillaboom able to go into. Oh no! Oh my god! No, that was exactly what. Oh no! Malcolm doubled down into that Necrozma, and oh my gosh, Necrozma was like, nope, I am going to show you why I am the better, like, I guess, cat dog in this scenario, because, like, Zacian and Necrozma staring down at each other, that was such a rough miss for Malcolm. Missing that high horsepower, the one time you needed it to hit, that it was exactly what, like, they should have done, and Yoko's Necrozma, you just can't touch it apparently. It's just, oh my god. I honestly think that is something that costs you the game at that point, because now you're in Trick Room. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Wow. What a quick turn of events for this game. I was kind of expecting we were going to be able to go into game number 3. It's possible that things still get switched around here, but in Trick Room, Yoko is definitely favored here. Going for the Earthquake from that Necrozma does so much damage to that Zacian.
Oh man, I think that high horsepower miss, I feel so bad for Malcolm, because that is like you played that turn perfectly, right? Like, you ignored the Ferrothorn, which went for another protect. Your Zacian was able to do massive amounts of damage into that Necrozma, and Rillaboom had one job. I take back everything nice that I've said about that Rillaboom so far. I mean, this Zacian, all you can really do is click Earthquake, and you're in Trick Room. There's such little outs for you, I think, right now for the Zacian, and even though it was super cheeky that you like click Swords Dance twice, like it would have paid off. Like it was so close.
It was such a close game, such a close set. Malcolm played so incredibly well this entire time. It's definitely, I don't like to say anything is over until it's over. But boy, this is looking like a real rough spot. Yeah.
Oh man, Lapras go. Actually, maybe there's a chance. Lapras protected this turn. No, Necrozma is still gonna go for Earthquake. I mean, maybe if like the Zacian holds on somehow, it might be able to do so. But
no.
Oh my god! Wait, it held on.
What?
Oh my gosh! Wait, it held on.
What HP?
Oh, no. Oh my gosh! You know what? If Trick Room was almost over, I would say there was a chance. But oh my gosh, that would have been so crazy. If you can get like what 3 protects, I think you have that opportunity, that chance too. Oh my god, this was crazy.
Come on, triple protect.
That's insane, because Grassy Terrain expired too, so that Earthquake does full damage. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. This is I don't know the chances of a triple protect. I think it's like 1%.
It's not
it's
good
really
enough, probably. But what if it happens?
Okay, there's a second percent. Oh my god, this is so stressful. Okay, Mogar has a chance. The RNG is now. Oh no, I think they got it. It's over. All we need is a second protect. Okay, it's at +4, and Aurora Veil's gone, and I think this should be a dead Lapras. And oh my god, that turnaround. Oh my god, what the heck just happened? This is insane. Oh my god, what the heck? I can't. That was an insane endgame right there. I don't even know where to start. I don't know. Oh my god.
Okay, can I just start out by saying, like, what a good boy Zacian getting the double protect. Let's go, doggo. We're actually going to a game number 3, which is very, very rare to see on this particular stream. So I can't be more excited, especially when it is top 4. We're playing a best of 3. You need 2 wins to secure the win to go on to the grand finals. And Mogar and Yoko are both giving it all they've absolutely got. This is incredible. I'm blown away right now.
Yeah. Oh my god. I can't even the amount of stress that you're going through in that moment too. Okay, so let's see. You've got the high horsepower miss. You've got the Earthquake surviving on 1 HP. You get the double protect, and honestly, because like Mogar had played that game so well, like from like the beginning to the end, right? You've got like the pivoting and the switching out the Pokemon for special attack drops on the Lapras to intimidate, the Zacian going for 2 sword stands and like being able to absolutely demolish like both the Ferrothorn and the Necrozma. I just, oh my god. That was...
my mind is reeling right now. That was such an exciting match to be able to see. Zacian deserves a big treat right now. Give it some pats on the head. I don't know, whatever you're doing, Mogar, to train your Zacian, keep it up because it clearly loves you. That is so exciting. What a great way to end a game. Oh my goodness.
That was... I cannot believe that. Like, yeah, so honestly, if your Pokemon does something good for you in a match, you take it to Pokemon Camp and you feed it curry and you play with it. And that's what you should be doing. Like, absolutely should be doing right now. That Zacian was just like, nope, I'm going to show Necrozma why I am the better restricted now over it, and its time is over. But game 3, and you know, this is going to be it. We've got the same lead from Yoko from game 2 as that Ferrothorn and that Lapras, and actually the same lead from Mogar. It worked out so well for him before. He was able to go for those parting shots, so it's going to be Lapras and Incineroar as the lead for him for this final game.
Yeah, so taking a look at the situation again, I think we're gonna go ahead and see a double Gigantamax here, just because if history likes to repeat itself, which it often does, I think that the double Gigantamax is certainly something to look at for both Malcolm and Yoko. Setting up the screens really early here, I think that's something that Mogar did incredibly well during that game number 2, was waiting so that the screens would be active a little bit longer. So going for those Max Geysers first, and then going for the G-Max Resonance at the very end of their Dynamax.
They were able to play that so beautifully in that first game, and honestly, like the screens coming out in the end and maybe like making a difference for Mogar was absolutely fantastic. So Mogar going for that same Gigantamax on this turn is going to be the faster Lapras, and you know, maybe we might see a switch up from Yoko is actually not going for the Gigantamax as Ferrothorn is hiding behind that Protect on this turn. Incineroar going for the parting shot, which we saw happen in game 2, is going to go down into that Lapras, but now we actually have a little bit of a change. Yoko did not go for that Gigantamax.
No, I'm pleasantly surprised by this. I think that kind of recognizing that Yoko, our Malcolm in this case is going to go for that turn 1 Gigantamax again, maybe wanting to preserve the Gigantamax for a little bit later, I think is absolutely the way to go. I think Yoko may even be maybe going for something like a Perish Song. I don't really know here, but I think whatever is going to happen is very good for Yoko, depending on how much this G-Max Resonance is going to do.
Yeah, so actually a little bit of change because like we had pointed out, Mogar had been going for those Max Geysers first, but G-Max Resonance is going to be the move of choice, is setting it up. Rillaboom making a reappearance was able to do so much, but it is that turn 1 Perish Song. So Yoko clicking into Perish, I actually love that, and that is fantastic because I know people, I think, were joking about, like, hey, maybe if you go for that turn 1 Perish, because now you're going to be putting Mogar in a position where they're going to have to switch out Pokemon eventually.
Perish Song turn 1 if real. That's basically what Yoko is saying in this case, and I really, really like that statement. I think it really puts a lot of pressure onto Mogar to get a lot done with their Dynamax turns, while that Perish Song is starting to tick down. And then you have to be very cognizant now of knowing how much you have left for that Perish counter, because you don't want your Pokemon to go down to something like that.
We're going to see a lot of shuffling around with the Pokemon here. Lapras starting that off from Yoko's side as Incineroar is going to be coming in. So this new turn from Rillaboom is not going to do as much. It's actually, it looks like it did more to Rillaboom than it did to Ferrothorn here, as Mogar is able to switch out that Rillaboom. Going to probably, bringing in that Zacian. So interestingly enough, the only different Pokemon I think that both players have brought are their restricted. So that's the only thing different. And like that Rillaboom sort of interaction. But Zacian's going to get that +1 now. And another G-Max Resonance from Malcolm's. Lapras is going to go into that. Ferrothorn does a lot of damage in there. Again, not behind the screens now. And if that Lapras wasn't on a timer before, it definitely is now thanks to that Leech Seed landing onto that Lapras.
Yeah, Hawthorne definitely wants to get those leech seeds set up, so this is a great position for Yoko to be in. Now, having landed that leech seed, Lapras is going to be taking a little bit of chip damage at the end of every turn, but more importantly, like you mentioned, Regina, you do have now a timer on how long Lapras is going to be able to last on this field. So trying to get as much done with those Gigantamax turns and then get the heck out of dodge so that you don't have to worry about it moving forward.
Or get away from dog. But that Incineroar is going to be switched out last coming back in as Zacian takes that opportunity to go for that Swords Dance. It is now going to be, I want to say, at +2 or 3. I can't remember when that Incineroar came in. Last turn of Dynamax for Malcolm's Lapras is going to hit that Lapras on the switch in as well. Then Incineroar was like, no, not going to take that Water type move to the face. And still has to worry about that Leech Seed and its Perish Song counter. But now Hawthorne are going to take this opportunity as well to Leech Seed that Zacian. So yes, you can set up those Swords Dances, but at the cost of your HP at the end of every turn.
Yeah, you are going to, I have a little bit of trouble, I think, setting up for the Swords Dance, but I think at the end of the day, like, Mogart did such a great job of utilizing the Swords Dances last turn that I don't think you're too worried about having to take a little bit of Leech Seed chip here. So looking forward, looking ahead, Yoko still has not used their Gigantamax yet, is patiently waiting. I think that Lapras, now that is back in the fray, might go for the Gigantamax on this next turn, but the Perish counter is falling, so now a little bit of onus is on Yoko to determine how these switches are going to go through.
Oh man, that Zacian though was able to hold on from full HP, like with that Earthquake and everything else. So maybe that leeching damage might hurt Mogart later on in the end. You're, like, that Hawthorne really just sitting there and kind of like, in a sense, taunting Mogart and is like, hey, you either do something about me now or you slowly drain away that HP. As Lapras is going to be switched out, we're going to see Incineroar coming into place. Both of these Pokemon for these trainers just love switching spots with each other. We saw the reverse happen that previous turn with Yoko, but an Intimidate down into both these Pokemon, but more importantly, we know that Incineroar is able to have those parting shots. This Incineroar, though, from Yoko's side is going to be coming in as well, so we've got these two cats staring each other down, so negating a little bit of that attack boost from that Swords Dance that Zacian was able to pull off that previous turn.
Yeah, but here's the Gigantamax that we were talking about, just making sure that you can get those screens set up for a little bit later on if they believe that Necrozma might be the final Pokemon in the back for Yoko. Have we seen everything yet? I don't think they bring Togekiss here.
No, I'm pretty sure it's like Thunder Cosmo because it does so much damage with that Earthquake and that weakness policy. Once it can knock out Pokemon that aren't at 1 HP. But wow, Sacred Sword, a clean knockout for that Zacian onto that Incineroar. Again, those pluses from Swords Dance are so scary. They make Zacian like absolutely terrifying.
Yeah. Now Zacian doesn't have to worry about those Intimidates anymore either, now that Incineroar is out of the picture, so you're kind of just continuously sitting at +2 unless you go for another Swords Dance again.
Yeah, so let's see. Max Gasser did about a little bit more than half, and thanks to the fact that that Incineroar went down as well, like, you also don't have to worry about Hawthorne. You have to worry about Hawthorne later on, but those Leech Seeds are going to be a problem, but not for right now. But there is the last Pokemon from Yoko. It is going to be that Necrozma. We know it loves to set up Trick Room, and the question is Mogart going to be able to stop it?
Let's see what happens for this next turn. Trick Room is definitely a threat. Yoko would probably prefer in this instance, based on the Pokemon that are left, to function within the Trick Room. But it's time to see what Zacian does best.
The Behemoth Blade, I love the way it looks. It's such a cool animation, and it's able to easily pick up that knockout onto that Gigantamax Lapras. Again, that +2, and the fact that Behemoth Blade does extra damage to a Dynamax Pokemon makes it like the perfect the perfect choice to click into. His parting shot from Incineroar is going to go down into that Duskmane Necrozma, and Necrozma is like, yeah, okay, you can get rid of my attack here, but the important thing is if you don't stop that Necrozma from setting up Trick Room, you might be in a little bit of trouble. However, grassy terrain being on the field means that the Earthquakes that we've seen Necrozma use won't be doing as much damage.
Yes, that is a incredibly important piece of information about grassy terrain, which is that once it's active on the field, you are doing less damage with moves, with certain ground type moves, and Earthquake just happens to be one of those ground type moves that does get affected by the grassy terrain being active. However, it's gone now. So now that that's gone, this Necrozma could definitely get a lot done with those Earthquakes. Unless that Rillaboom comes back in. So.
Yeah, I think that Rillaboom was still in the back, but Yoko was able to set up Trick Room, though. So Ferrothorn and Necrozma are going to have to really put in a lot of work to be able to take care of all of Malcolm's Pokemon still. You've got to worry about sort of like that Intimidate cycling pressure from Incineroar. It has Parting Shot as well. But resetting the stats for their Zacian, we know that it had that. It was able to pull off the Swords Dance, but now Incineroar coming in for the Intimidate, going to try to make sure that even if you don't have grassy terrain, that Necrozma is not able to do a lot of damage with Earthquake otherwise. But Ferrothorn going straight for a Body Press, even without any sort of boost, still does a pretty good amount of damage. Necrozma going for the Earthquake, thanks to the Intimidates and the Parting Shots from Incineroar earlier on, is going to activate its Citrus Berry and does barely any damage to both of these Pokemon.
Yeah, look at that Citrus Berry becoming active again. Oh, and Perish Song now coming out this time from Mogar's Lapras. That's definitely putting a timer on the end of this game. And wow, how the tides have turned from this series.
Yeah, I honestly, Mogar has been playing this fantastically. They've been able to pivot properly in a way that I think puts a lot of pressure onto Yoko, and that Perish Song just sort of seals up the deal, right? Yoko's Lapras clicked Perish Song at the beginning of the turn, but Mogar was able to switch it around, and now they're able to just click it and put a lot more pressure now onto Yoko, because if you don't end this game in the next couple of turns and to start picking up knockouts, then, you're in a lot of trouble. But there's two Intimidators with Incineroar and Rillaboom, and sorry, I meant Fake Outers with Incineroar and Rillaboom, so you can stop both of Yoko's Pokemon from really attacking.
Absolutely, and that's going to put a huge damper on Yoko's game plan to try to secure these knockouts even faster, especially because Ferrothorn as a Pokemon is not usually one that's known for dishing out too much damage, and then the Necrozma as well, knowing that it does have access to Earthquake, but you have the grassy terrain on the field. You're going to have to get really, really good reads in here if you're Yoko in order to try to knock out these Pokemon very quickly. Ooh, Swords Dance, though, coming out from this Necrozma.
Yeah, so actually both of Yoko's Pokemon taking the opportunity to set up a little bit, right? You've got the Iron Defense to help Body Press, and then you've got the Swords Dance to help mitigate some of the attack drops you've been getting from Parting Shot and from Incineroar's Intimidate. That is one turn of Perish Song, though, and I think it's still going to be a little bit rough for Yoko. I mean, Malcolm has all the pieces that they kind of need to be able to continually switch around, and just to make it so, yeah, Yoko, you can try to set up, but again, if you're not taking out Pokemon right away, then Mogar is still kind of in a good spot to be able to be like, okay, I'll just keep switching Pokemon and pivoting them around.
Absolutely, and you can already see some of that fake out pressure you were talking about having to come to the fray with that Rillaboom clicking that fake out into that Necrozma slot. And Intimidate is going to continue to lower the amount of attack that both of these Pokemon are going to be able to dish out as well. So that's something that you're just going to have to keep in mind moving forward. And I think that Malcolm really, really positioned themselves well in this game.
Yeah, and so now Body Press, going to the Incineroar is going to pick up the knockout there, so no more Intimidate cycling. But again, the fact that Necrozma is unable to move on this turn, and you can get the HP back slowly for both Pokemon, but Perish Song works so well against Pokemon like Ferrothorn, who at the end game, you're just sitting there waiting for it to set up and recover HP, and it's sort of a pain and can, in a lot of cases, can 1v3 a lot of teams. But because of the counter that you have with Perish Song, you are making it so that that end game slow game that it likes is no longer a viable option.
Oh boy, what a fantastic set between these players. It's unfortunately the timer is counting down, and we are moments away from seeing our very first grand finalist for the women's tournament. And I couldn't be more proud of the plays that we saw from both of these players. Fantastic set. We were here for some incredible history making.
Yeah. I also really appreciate that Mogart is just continually switching out Pokemon, right? Like at this point, you know that you are probably going to win this set, but making sure and guaranteeing yourself the win and just saying, okay, well, I'm going to save this Pokemon for later, and I'm going to try to just make it so that Yoko has to continually attack. Body Press knocks out that Zacian on the switch in and Sunsteel Strike from Necrozma, it's going to do a lot of damage. Maybe some okay damage actually to the Lapras. It has been intimidated, and like the Swords Dance was not able to really help stop that. Like, yeah, it's still above half health. Freeze Ray going into that like Necrozma just for some extra damage, but now Malcolm, I think, was able to just shuffle Pokemon around in such a good way that this Ferrothorn, which is normally a pain, is just knocked out immediately thanks to that Parasol.
Lapras looking pretty happy about this one, but congratulations to Malcolm for moving forward to the grand finals of the women's tournament. I see some questions in chat about whether about pronouns and things like that. Malcolm is non-binary. We allow and are always looking at trying to create spaces that improve the diversity of players and trainers that play Pokemon. So this is just one of the ways and one of the efforts made by many in order to do just that. So we are so proud to see these incredible players duking it out in these top 4 sets and in these grand finals coming up soon. Regina, honestly, I don't have much to say about the set except that it was fantastic.
It was so fun. Those RNG balanced out in the end after that game too, but I think that game too was probably one of my favorite things that I've seen in a very, very long time.
That end game.
It was so much fun popping off about it. It's just like, oh my god, I cannot believe all of this is happening. That was fantastic, and I know that there are a lot of people in chat who are like proud of both Yoko and Milgar, and I'm very excited to see how finals is going to play out.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be such a fantastic time. But I think I'm taking a break for this one. We're going to have the other top 4 match coming up soon. I believe, Regina, it's going to be you and Gabby taking the fold for that one. And then I might be back a little bit later. But boy, oh boy, I hope that you all are enjoying the show. I hope you are all enjoying the stream. I hope you're all celebrating the incredible diversity and the incredible players that we have that are in this tournament. And it's so great to see all the support for everybody. So yeah, it's been such a great day so far. GG's to Yoko, absolutely.